Hello and welcome to People and Profit, the show where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Marcus Carlson. Coming up, deal or no deal, we look at how the wavering over the Greek debt crisis is hitting the eurozone's image. Telecom disruptor will tell you about the billionaire who's trying to redraw the map of the European telecoms industry. Plus, are you more financially savvy than a German teenager? We look at how finance is taught in German schools. First up, though, it's been an almost never-ending cycle of crunch meeting, followed by ultimatum, followed by last-minute deal. The debt drama has dogged Greece for years. The talks have been tense, with lurking fears of a Greek exit from the single currency area. But if we look at the bigger picture, has the standoff damaged the eurozone's reputation? I'll put that question to our guests in a moment. But first, we're taking a look at the beginning of the bailout.
It started with a downgrade. Standard & Poor's lowered Greece's credit rating in December 2009 over concerns about the country's public debt burden. Just a few months later, the Prime Minister negotiated a €110 billion bailout from creditors that included the IMF, Eurozone countries and the European Central Bank. George Papandreou was optimistic.
At the end of my term, Greece will not be bankrupt. It will be reborn.
But conditions only got worse. Having 4 prime ministers in 4 years has added to the uncertainty. Together with a second bailout in 2012, Greece received loans totaling €240 billion. In return for each tranche, Athens had to prove it was making austerity cuts, notably affecting the public sector and pensions. GDP shrank by more than a quarter. Unemployment rose drastically to a high of 28% in November 2013. Today, 1.2 million Greeks are out of a job. The far-left Syriza party emerged from the sidelines to become a beacon of hope.
Today, my friends, is the beginning of the end of a regime that plunged Greece into poverty, unemployment, grief, and desperation.
6 months after coming to office, talks with its creditors remained deadlocked. Earlier this month, Standard & Poor's downgraded Greece's credit rating once again, a notch further into junk territory with a negative outlook.
Joining us now for more is Marc-Antoine Collard. He's chief economist at Rothschild & Company in Paris. Welcome to the program, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
Now, they say that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Is that going to be the case for the Eurozone once everything has been said and done in Greece?
I think that we would certainly be entering uncharted waters if Greece was to default. That being said, I think that the situation is very different today from what we had a few years ago. The ECB is, with Mario Draghi, is very different today than what we had a few years ago.
For instance, the European Central Bank has stepped in with quantitative easing. That is just one of the measures that the ECB has come out with.
Exactly. And the second point I would make is that we're not in the same place in the business cycle. Back then, a few years ago, in 2011, 2012, we were entering in a recession. Unemployment rate was trending higher. Today, we have a recovery. It's still a moderate recovery, still fragile.
But the global economy is doing a lot better now than it was, let's say, 5 years ago.
Exactly. What we have learned from the crisis is that we need probably more fiscal union, more financial union.
The Eurozone debt crisis exposed a number of weaknesses within the single currency area. For instance, one country is borrowing at higher interest rates than another country. Have those weaknesses been ironed out? Have they been removed, or are they still fundamentally there?
Well, they're still there, but we've seen improvements. For example, the SMEs, they still, in Italy, Spain, Portugal, the SMEs, they will borrow at higher rates than similar SMEs in France or in Germany. But the financial fragmentation is less pronounced today than it was even a few months ago. Again, we see improvement. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting better. And I think that part of it is thanks to the ECB policies.
Do you think that a Greek crisis can happen again?
What you had in Greece is the ratio of debt to GDP went up because GDP collapsed.
Essentially, the economy shrank.
Exactly. What you have in Spain, for instance, they have put in place some reforms that will probably allow them to have more growth down the road. So the situation is very different. So it's not impossible, but I would say that it's unlikely.
All right, Marc-Antoine Collard from Rothschild, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
We're going to move on now. French conglomerate Bouygues has rejected an offer for its telecoms business. Rival Altice, which is led by billionaire Patrick Drahi, put in a €10 billion bid for the unit. The ball is now in Drahi's court. Will he continue his pursuit of Bouygues Telecom and sweeten his offer? Drahi is on a campaign to build a telecoms empire. Keithavan Goristani takes a closer look.
According to Forbes, he's jumped from 215th to 57th richest man in the world, worth an estimated 24 billion euros. In the space of a couple of years, Patrick Drahi has gone from virtual unknown billionaire to big player in the world of telecoms. Born in Morocco, the French-Israeli businessman has built an international empire over the past decade. In 2002, he founded Altice, a Luxembourg-based cable company. Taking advantage of very low interest rates, he has borrowed billions on the cheap to fuel his buying spree. Over the years, he's acquired about 20 cable and mobile operators across Europe. In 2014 alone, Drahi bought about 25 billion euros worth of companies, including Portugal Telecom for 7.4 billion euros, Virgin Mobile France for 325 million euros, and he spent 17 billion euros for the shock takeover of SFR, France's second largest mobile operator. This year, Drahi took his deal-making across the Atlantic with his first move into the U.S. market. He bought cable operator Suddenlink for $6.7 billion and was eyeing an ambitious bid for Time Warner Cable, though he later said his company wasn't ready for such a big move just yet. With his latest bid on France's Bouygues Telecom, the man nicknamed Citizen Drahi proves he isn't done expanding his empire, snapping up one industry rival at a time. Drahi is also eyeing an empire in a different field, the media. After funding the Israeli news channel I-24, he went on to buy French newspaper Libération before taking over L'Express, one of France's biggest press groups.
Now, Altice's attempt to buy Bouygues is just the latest consolidation move in the European market, and Stephen Carroll is here to look at what's driving this trend. Stephen.
Marcus, telecoms companies are surfing a wave of deals, and the sums involved are eye-watering. Britain's BT Group is buying the country's largest mobile operator, EE, for over 17 billion euros. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hutchinson Whampoa bought O2 for around 14 billion. In Spain, Vodafone's buying Ono for 7 billion, while Orange has agreed to take over Jazztel for just over 3 billion. In total, D-Logic estimates the value of these telecoms mergers in Europe so far this year to be almost 60 billion euros. That's still less than a third of the value of the deals done in the industry globally, but that's a figure that's up by almost 20% on last year. So, what's going on in Europe? There are more than 150 telecoms operators across the continent, according to KPMG. Their revenue has fallen steadily since 2009, according to an industry lobby, as users turn to the likes of Skype and WhatsApp rather than texting or calling. That means that merging into bigger groups can often help these firms to cut costs, boost profits, and invest in new network technology. But as the Bouygues takeover attempt has proven, though, doing deals under watchful European governments and regulators can be tricky. French industry tycoons like Patrick Drahi and Xavier Niel, the owner of Iliad, are now looking to the United States for new opportunities. Marcus.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that, Stephen. And just to pick up on that note of European regulation, I spoke to the European Union's Competition Commissioner. She's expressed concern that consolidation will lead to higher prices for European consumers. You can watch the interview with Margherita Vestager on our website, france24.com. Let's move on to something different now, though. Interest rates, mortgages and pension plans. The mere mention of these words is enough to instill dread in some of us. But in Germany, financial advisors are teaching these terms to teenagers at school. The aim is to help young people make sound financial choices. It's welcomed by schools, but it remains controversial. Germany correspondent Jessica Saltz has more.
They are barely 15 years old, but they are already calculating their pension plans with the aid of a savings specialist. For the last 3 years, students at this high school in Gera in eastern Germany have had the opportunity to take courses taught by a financial advisor. The topics include pensions and inflation, investments and equities, credits and debts.
It will help me later on when I get offered contracts and investment opportunities. These are things we would not normally talk about.
We learned that it's important to distribute money in case the interest rate collapses.
Since the 2008 financial crisis, German schools have opened their doors to these financial coaches. They bring their own teaching supplies and work for free in schools, promising not to promote any financial products. But it's not always easy to draw a red line.
If someone wants to take risks and wants a return on their investment of 4%, they obviously won't be interested in a savings book. In this case, they will have to look for alternatives, and we give them all the information they need to make their decision, but we don't promote any products.
1,000 foundations and associations are spreading their words around schools. Most were founded by financial advisors, banks or insurers. Unions denounce it as a deceitful form of lobbying.
If they are willing to invest money into school materials that are expensive or to send the counselors into schools, it should be understood that this is a business decision for their companies and not for society.
Anti-lobbying NGOs and teachers' unions are demanding that a quality label be created to prevent marketing in schools. According to a PISA survey, Germany is one of the countries in which industry and finance have the most influence on education.
That brings us to the end of this edition of People and Profit. If you want to get in touch, go to our Facebook page, France 24 Business. You can also tweet me on @MarcusF24. Thank you for watching and bye for now.